Howdy guys, I'm Jeep and Jason, and today I got a really exciting upgrade for the AutoEdits Jeep for you. That's right, the PSC Hydro Assist steering upgrade. Now, I've been wanting to do this like really hard since I did my buddy Joe's Jeep and did the 1-tons on that. And I went all the way and did the cylinder assist. I'm gonna walk you through all of the parts in the kit, and I'm gonna give you my impressions on what I believe would be adequate for the weekend warrior that tends to be more like me, like I think many of us, most of us Jeepers are, where we need to daily our Jeeps and then go out on the weekends and boonie bounce and have some fun and climb some rocks. Now, I'm going all the way with the Hydro Assist because once I drove that on Joe's Jeep, it changed my perception of what this does to a daily driver Jeep. I thought it was gonna take away some of the feel, it didn't, so spoiler alert, it was pretty awesome. All right, on my way to the workbench there where all the parts are, I thought, okay, wait a second. This is kind of a complicated kit to source out, and it can be a little bit intimidating. So, and I've already been asked on my social media, on the AutoEdits Instagram and Facebook, what kit number and all that. So let me show you how I did it. You go to jeepsteering.com. Oh yeah, that's on my swag shirt here. I like this shirt here. From there, super easy. Go to your platform. We're gonna go to JK Wrangler Steering Solutions. We have a 2013 JK we'll be working on here. Next page, what size tires? We have 38, so it's gonna be 35 and up. And then just scroll down to what front axle you have. Now, at the moment I have, and you just go down, you'll see stock OEM axle, Dana 60s. Now that's the kit that I put on my buddy Joe's Jeep with the Dynatrac axles. And we have an Ultimate Dana 44 front, so it's an aftermarket Dana 44. So we'll click that. And then boom, it just takes you right to the Performance Steering Components, PSC page that has this kit. And now what the main parameters you're looking for, it's the 6.75 inches axle lock to lock, and that's for the steering ram that we have here. And then the only other thing that I had to pick was the 1.375 collar for the ram mount for the tie rod and on the steering, and that's it. So basically, this is the kit that we will be installing. Let me go run you through some of these parts. There are very few times when a kit shows up here and the pieces are so race car looking that you just like get super excited about. So this is definitely one of them. So let's get over there and check out some of the pieces. Up and go. Here's the parts, here's the kit. One of the premier reasons why you go with what I consider the top tier. I mean, it's pretty much in the industry when you just, King of the Hammers just happened and you saw PSC stickers on a lot of winning race cars, and that's because look at these components. This is race car caliber stuff. I got spoiled when I installed this on my buddy's Joe's Jeep, and I just was like, are you kidding me? This is a complete kit for the JK. Now this is gonna take the Jeep into a whole nother realm for me. This year I've just decided to pivot, and we're gonna actually go over the next few months into a much more aggressive place than I thought. A year and a half ago, put the Ultimate Dana 44 in the front, and that's what we'll be installing this on there now. And so things might change a little bit. I'm definitely gonna do this semi-float 60 in the rear eventually to accommodate some of the more aggressive wheeling and skills I wanna learn later this year for some of the things I want to do, but still want to keep the interstate long-range cruiser capabilities that I've built into this Jeep now. It's a big install. The mechanical part is actually quite fun. You'll see, ripping the old stuff out and bolting this stuff in just requires you to pay attention. And then hooking up all the plumbing is the stuff that is where you just need your eyes and ears on, completely focused and straight, and it's a piece of cake. So first order of business is to rip the stock stuff off the Jeep. Now for ease of access to everything, I'm gonna go ahead and take both front tires off. I have jack stands under the front axle right now, and then I also have jack stands under the frame because I'm gonna need to droop that out a little bit. So there's gonna be some gymnastics that goes on here, but for now, tires off to get some room. Inner fender panels are already out. And I'll show you what we're doing under here. If you guys are on the channel, you just saw how I get the engine bays looking like this. So starting in the engine compartment, we're going to go ahead and take the air cleaner out first. Then we'll go ahead and disconnect the coolant overflow, unbolt it from the top of the radiator support here, take the overflow bottle out, disconnect the negative terminal on your battery right now, just so you don't run into any chances of shorting anything out. After that, we'll get the belt off, then we'll pull the alternator bracket off and get the alternator out of the way so we can have better access at the pump to get the stock components out of there. Now we'll pop the grill off by just taking these tabs out of the top. Most of you Jeep owners have done this by now, timer 3. We'll pull that up. Now it's time to move down low, and we're gonna go ahead and remove our drag link. We're gonna loosen up our track bar. That'll come off in a minute. We'll remove the steering dampener here because that is gonna be replaced. And then we'll get ready to droop out our junk to get the stock steering box out. But let's get this stuff out. Then get ready for some serious finger gymnastics as you remove the 3 bolts that hold the steering pump to the engine. All right, pump is loose. And pull the reservoir out. All right, so now that we got most of the stock components out of the Jeep, this is a really graphic example of why the stock components, how easy it is to overheat your power steering fluid, and then the steering becomes even more difficult when you're off-road. And it's because once the fluid gets hot, because it doesn't get outside of the steering system, and here's the pump, here's the reservoir, and then it goes over to the actual gearbox. That's it. So you could see that over the years, the fluid gets hot, it expands, and it overfills, and it just goops down into your engine bay. And so those of you with stock steering on your Jeeps and have wheeled a bit, go check your power steering. It's gonna be low. Now it's time to droop our junk. I got jack stands under the frame rails here. Before we get the steering gearbox out of this thing, it's good practice at this point to get your steering wheel kind of under control. So I'm gonna put a bungee cord, you can use a ratchet strap, whatever you want, and I'll just do that to the brake lever there. And what that will do, it doesn't have to keep the steering totally straight, we're gonna align it later, but that just keeps the steering wheel from spinning and getting out of sync when you get the new steering gearbox in. So just go ahead and get that stabilized. Now you can separate the steering shaft from the gearbox. And that's the 13 millimeter. Now before we heave the new big bore steering box in there, let's get the SF11 fitting in and prepped, and that's the actual fitting that says SF11 on it, so that's easy. And then I use a little bit of hydraulic thread sealant on there. And then we'll just run that into the return port. So this is the low pressure return port on there. And give that a snug. All right, so now it's time to buzz the stock steering gearbox out. I recruited my neighbor, Keith. Thank you, Keith. All right, he's gonna buzz the last 2 bolts off the frame here. All right, now go ahead, let's send it. Oh, that's not so bad. I was actually really scared of this thing. No, oh yeah, okay, thanks. Gotcha. Look, he one-arms it, come on! Just when I was thinking, I knew I was out of shape, but then, there you go. Have a friend come and help you with this section. Push this little thing in. There it is.
What if you have to abort?
You'll be fine. All right, thank you so much, buddy. High five, Knuckles. Thanks, bud. Okay, we're good, thank you. An important thing to remember here is to use the PSC supplied bolts with spacers on the forward 2 bolts of the gearbox, and then you could reuse stock bolts for the rear. Then it's time to reattach the steering shaft to the gearbox, put some Loctite on that sucker, and tighten it down. The pitman arm only goes on the right way or 180 degrees the wrong way, so make sure it's facing forward and tighten it down. The directions say to go to 220 foot-pounds. I don't have a wrench that goes that high, so I tighten it as tight as I can or until the lock washer is just about flat. Now it's time to bolt on some race car goodness. We're gonna take the new bracket for the power steering pump. We're gonna go ahead and bolt this into place. And you wanna make sure that you put some Loctite on these. Actually, all of the bolts right here get Loctite. Now we're gonna go ahead and get our fittings into the reservoir, and I use a little bit of the power steering fluid that comes with this kit as lube. I just put a little bit on a brush here, and I put it on the O-rings. I put it on anything that's gonna accentuate the seal and make everything just go together smoother. Make sure that O-ring is nice and lubed up. So we're gonna bolt the bracket onto the bottom of this thing now. I'm gonna use a little bit of the orange Loctite that I have here. I've really liked this stuff a lot. So the bracket goes just like this. All right, so a little bit of Loctite on the bolt that came out of this little mount here. We'll put the spacer that came with the kit, put a reservoir in place. Admire the billet awesomeness. And what you want to do, they warn you in the instructions, is to get this thing as close to the headlight or to the front of the Jeep as possible. So I'll kind of give it a little love. That feels pretty good. Now it's time for some plumbing. Pressure hose goes first. We're gonna do the same drill here. We're gonna just lube up the ends of the fittings here. Some lube on my O-rings. Looking good. And then we'll go from the pump to the box. Now we'll just secure the hose as it goes across here. There's these little holes and these clamps and the Christmas trees came with the kit. So this will help keep the pressure hose. There you go. After the pressure line, we do the low pressure return from the reservoir into the pump, and that's this fatty hose right here. And now's a good time to start doing your line purging, making sure that there's no debris inside. So we'll go inside there. No debris. Another pro tip, I put the power steering fluid inside the flange here and here, and then we'll take the hydraulic thread sealant that comes with the kit and we'll just put a little bit of dab, and you'll feel how much smoother this thing goes on here when you have it lubed up right. Time to prep the cooler. Now before we get it mounted and even figure out where we want it to be, I'm going to put a little bit of the thread sealant on the NPT side. I have the fluid cooler now just loosely floating in place where it's going to live here on the lower crossmember here on the core support. And what I do is I have both hoses, the hose from the gearbox underneath the radiator to the cooler on this side, and then from the cooler on this side underneath the radiator to the reservoir. Now I got to say, there's a dramatic difference I just installed this kit a year or so ago on Joe's Jeep, and it's the same amount of work, but the instructions now are so good and so easy. Like, just don't be intimidated. It's a lot of work, but it's so spelled out for you. Like, they even had the hoses labeled which hose specifically. Like, it's so good. And the instructions, I just have them up on the computer over there. Big shout to how much easier this kit is to install now. But yeah, so let's move on. Now, what we're gonna do here, and the whole point of actually having this just loosely fitted up here, is this way it just helps me identify where I want to mount it. Let's mark these holes, and then this is where we'll drill our holes and put our 1/4-20 bolts that came with the kit. Now these don't have to go that tight. You're just keeping this in place. You don't want to crush that tube. We use our hydraulic thread sealant, put a little bit on there. Perfect. All right. And for the final component of the adventure part of the kit, it's the, what is this? SRV valve. This basically connects to the top of the reservoir to give it a place to breathe without letting any of the fluid gunk out inside your engine bay. So this has a cool little spot. They want it to go right here. I already installed the little doohickey, the threaded thing there, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the push lock hose there, and it just simply goes in just like that. Now the hose will go across right underneath this little plastic shield here. That's handy dandy, right? Look at this. We're gonna turn the corner, push it into lock, and it has just the right amount of turn in it to tuck right into here. Wow! Holy mackerel, that is awesome. So that was a really impressive bit of kit to install. Didn't have to modify a single hose or tube. Everything went in exactly according to the instructions. So I'm really thrilled with how this is looking so far. So this is the actual adventure kit that I recommend that most people would be this would be the perfect kit for the weekend warrior Jeeper. I'm gonna go ahead and take it up the next level by throwing the cylinder on. So that's next, hydraulic assist, baby. All right, now it's time to either call your buddy with a welder or be that guy or gal with a welder, and let's get the cylinder mounted down there. But first off, just want to run through really quick. I went ahead, threw the grill back in, put the alternator back in, put the belt in, put the air intake back in, and I had to do one little trim down at the bottom where the fittings were, and that's it. That fit in there pretty good, looks really good. But for now, let me take you downtown and I'll show you how I'm gonna mount the cylinder up, and we'll weld the tabs on, and then it's on to bleeding this thing and getting it back on the road and do some mall crawling. What do you say? Let's go. So there are a few other important aspects that you should consider before you go to the cylinder assist steering. Now, having all of that strength being applied to your tie rod, I've seen Jeeps in gnarly situations with the tire against a rock. This offers you so much strength that it literally can like use your tire and move that rock. But if your components aren't strong enough, like get reed knuckles. If you're gonna go this way, get a high steer, get the reed knuckles. These are just, like PSC, it's an industry standard of the best part in this particular area of your vehicle. So get it, peace of mind, it's strong, it's good, and you have to drive accordingly. When you have all this strength here, you could actually break wheels, break other things on your vehicle, break your track bar mount, because you now will be able to generate so much force against other components. So think about that. You're a driver. I want to always kind of put that into your mind, your guys' minds when you're driving your Jeep or any vehicle. I consider myself a driver. It doesn't matter what vehicle I'm in, I'm a driver. Where the cylinder mounts is kind of important. There's a beefy on the UD44, there's a beefy section right here that used to have a tab for the steering dampener. And so I cut that off, smoothed it, just rubbed the paint, Scotch brighted the paint off. This is where it's gonna live. I have my bolt for the track bar mount in place. And then what I'm gonna do, let me show you guys what to look for. See, since the steering goes like that, that's full lock that way, full lock this way. If you notice, full lock to the right gets the closest to this. So this is where I'm going to eyeball the mount. Since the cylinder is in fully compressed mode, this is gonna simulate a right turn. So I'm gonna go ahead and mount this accordingly here. And that's just hold it in place. I did a quick trim on this upper tab to make room for this, this bolt. And I think that's gonna do it. You wanna make sure your ram is level, pushing straight across this. And of course, this bar will change a little bit, but let's get this tacked in. So it looks good. I got the ram exactly where I want it to be. I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out of the way, and then we can go ahead and get a weld around our tabs here. Time to install the ram for final. That's exciting, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten these jam nuts on the cylinder just because I want to kind of lock it in right there. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get the plumbing ran, and that's the 2 lines from the steering gearbox down to this, and that's fairly simple. The diagram has that. The passenger side goes to the one closest to the firewall on the back of the steering box, and the one on the driver's side goes to the fitting on the front of the gearbox.
Did I say final install of the ram a minute ago? Whoopsie. Get that thing out of the way so you can get your track bar and your drag link back in.
So if you ever want a good trick on how to remember what is your tie rod and what is your drag link, your drag link is this guy, and it's the one that drags the knuckle left and right. It attaches to your gearbox and drags the knuckle left and right. So think of it as knuckle dragger. And your tie rod ties the 2 wheels together and does the steering. So drag link drags the knuckles, knuckle dragger, and the tie rod is this one that ties the 2 wheels together. Maybe? Works for me.
Now is time for the final install of the cylinder. Then grab your steering knuckles and go lock to lock, left to right, and check for clearance. We look real good here.
And you want to fill it and then bleed all of the air out of the system. Let me show you what that looks like. So the line is right above, that is the filter right there. And it's time to just turn the wheel lock to lock 7 to 8 times. So we'll go right lock, nice and slow. This is not a race. And all the way to left lock. So now we'll start it up and let it just run for 30 seconds, and we'll listen. Since the first startup went pretty good, got a little bit of warmth into the system, the air bubbles are, pretty prevalent down in here, and there's no way to just rush that. So while those air bubbles clear, I'll go ahead and stuff the tires back on because I'm feeling pretty good so far. So we'll get the tires on, we'll leave them off the ground for the next engine start and turn lock to lock, but looking pretty good. So yeah, just gotta take your time, be patient, wait for the bubbles to go away. Definitely feels like, or sounds like there's still air. Yep, plenty of air left in there, all of those bubbles. That last engine run lock to lock went pretty good. Waited for the bubbles to go down quite a bit. Let's start it. This will be the first time on the ground on its own weight. Let's see how it feels. Sounds good so far. All right. Oh, yeah. Oh boy. It's so easy. Ooh, that feels good. I think it's time to drive. Let's go hit the mall. Okay, let's check the fluid just to make sure to see how we did after our first on the ground test. It looks perfect. Wow, okay, time to drive. Okay, now that we've got the thing bled and the system looks great, no leaks, let's get out and drive this thing. I've been going crazy waiting to feel this. Initial feel right out of the driveway is, wow, dang, shoot, holy mackerel. It's super light, so let's see Yep, it centers itself. See, that's what I was worried about, that it wouldn't center, like want to center itself. And there's a few other adjustments that you got to make sure that you do. Anytime you do a high performance upgrade to your vehicle, you got to make sure that all of the systems accentuate that thing. So enough caster. They recommend having 7 degrees of caster. I just happen to like that anyway. So that's where this thing is, and it feels so good. So having it want to come back to center was the thing that I was worried about, and it does. So it's just, I guess what the biggest impact right away is how little effort it takes to keep this thing pointed the direction I want it to go. And that's gonna definitely take some getting used to. Like, I am not used to this. It's very, very light steering. Is that good? I don't know yet. It is too new. But is it nice? Yeah, it's very, very refreshing. So the comparison I could draw right away is that it feels very much like the newer Broncos that I drove. That has independent front suspension, rack and pinion, all of that stuff that I tend to really like because it's refined. This gives you that impression just because of how light the steering is, but yet it still is extremely responsive. Like, feedback is immediate. I forgot to check this. I don't know if the big bore steering gearbox actually is a different ratio. It feels more sporty. I'll have to do that research, but it just has a bit of a sportier feel, like it's more responsive, and that's gonna take some getting used to, but it's nice. I'm so happy. I'm so glad I didn't settle or under upgrade and just stick with the adventure kit, because I know in the rocks and in situations off-road, more severe off-road situations, this is exactly what I want. So I know I did good in that respect. This was the world that I was concerned about, and all of my concerns are completely at ease. This is actually even nicer to drive in this city grind than stock. So just don't worry about that. It's different for sure. It's different, but it's better. I absolutely like this. I think we should do a little quick freeway blast. Let's see. So here we are going 70 on the freeway. Perfect. No hands on the wheel. Look at that. Look at this. It's amazing. I don't know why I didn't think it would be this nice, but it is. So, all right, let's go mall crawling. All right, so let's do a little bit of mall crawling on this curb here, this little island, and I'll just feed a little bit of steering input into it and let it kind of do its thing and see if I can counter steer like I would want to. So like right there, it's bound up and I don't feel it in the wheel. Wow. Oh, this is amazing. Look at this, one finger. So let's go back over across this thing. So right here, this will be one of those moments where I want to turn into it. And now I'll turn against it. Oh my gosh. See, you just need one hand now, which gives me that feeling of control that I didn't have before, where you had to just be here and just wrestle and plan for your steering inputs. Now all you have to do is just be careful that you don't break other stuff because you have so much steering control. Oh, love it. No leaks, everything's perfect. Well, there you go. A huge upgrade that I wish I had done earlier, way sooner. Why didn't you guys tell me? Oh wait, a bunch of you guys actually did. So there you go, the PSC cylinder assist kit installed, tested out, looks, feels great, kind of changes everything. Stay tuned guys, there are a lot of things coming for the Jeep. This year is gonna be crazy. I say we go out and go camping to celebrate this upgrade. What do you say? Come on aboard, make sure you're subscribed, hit the notifications, please. And until next time, enjoy your drive. Oh, this was a good one. I feel good. All right, more mall crawling.